The Alex Principles became my way of summarizing the most important lessons I've learned throughout my journey from mentors, from leaders, from my own experiences and failures of growth and reflection.
Welcome to Identity and Impact. This is a space where we explore leadership, growth, operational excellence, humanity, identity, and meaningful impact in a rapidly changing world. I'm Blanche, and today I'm very fortunate to have been invited by Alex Guzmania for a deeper conversation that goes beyond the reflections and posts he recently shared online. So, knowing the posts, I'm sure you've heard that we'll be talking about leadership, burnout, executive presence, sustainable excellence, identity, AI, and the future of work, and why identity and impact was created in the first place. Alex, congratulations on launching this another big project of yours, which I know will be successful.
Oh, thank you, Blanche. And again, thank you for agreeing to do this with me. It's nice to have you in a different setting, not a work environment. And a good morning greeting from Lisbon. I'm here this week because I'm speaking in the shared service conference.
Wow, another gig for you, a testament to your expertise. But well, before we start, I know that your birthday is around the corner, but can I just say you don't look 45. But I know that in terms of wisdom and executive experience, you're probably in your senior years, 60 mentally. So congratulations in advance. Happy birthday, Alex.
Thank you, Blanche. Those are kind words. Please continue to say it several more times throughout the podcast. It makes me feel young yet wiser. But seriously, reaching this stage of life made me reflect deeply, Blanche. Some might call it midlife crisis, but no, I don't consider it that. It's really, I'm at a stage where I have to reflect deeply, and that reflection is in particular for topics on leadership, on success, growth, identity, and the kind of impact I wanted to create moving forward.
Well, I know from the outside looking in, many people would probably already describe your career as successful. You've led transformation work globally, worked across cultures, managed large scale initiatives, even mentored some people who are already in leadership positions. So, to a lot of us, that looks like success already. And still, you feel that you need to do more. So, what made you feel there was still a need to create identity and impact?
I wish I can consider myself successful, but I think I have yet to return back to the society in general and to others and help others grow. And once I've done that, probably that's when I would consider it a success. But another reason, Blanche, is that because over the years, I've realized many professionals are quietly carrying invisible pressure to constantly prove themselves, pressure to remain relevant, to adapt continuously, sustain high performance, and meet expectations that never seem to stop. I know that personally because I've experienced it myself. And I've experienced most of that, if not all, right? So earlier in my career, I associated success very heavily on achievement, on delivery, on recognition and performance, which having worked with me, know that very well. So I work in a demanding environments where speed, innovation, operational excellence, and transformations were deeply valued. To be clear though, I still believe those things matter tremendously. Organizations absolutely still need accountability, innovation, operational excellence, transformation, and really high standards of performance.
Yes, and those aren't very bad quality. I mean, those are really what everybody strives to achieve. But you pivoted. I mean, how were you able? Why are you? Why is your thinking evolved now? What triggered it?
Very much, Blanche. I would love to say that I'm evolving, if not yet fully evolved. But one realization that stayed with me was this: performance alone does not sustain people.
Wow, that's very powerful, and I think that resonated with a lot of people online. And what brought this about?
Partly my own experience. So there was a point in my career when I realized I was spending very little time with my family, especially my son when he was much younger. That forced me to reflect more deeply on what sustainable success actually means. Not because I stopped being ambitious, you know that I'm ambitious, Blanche, but because I realized ambition and humanity should not have to compete against each other.
Yes, I know very well how ambitious you are, and that's not a bad thing. I'd like to bring you back to a conversation you mentioned with Tracy, which also influenced you. And I think it would be good for you to share this with everyone.
Yes, so I really want to acknowledge and thank Tracy for that conversation that we had when we were both in Manila, because it genuinely stayed with me. She's a colleague, a fellow Asian leader, a woman, and a mother. So, like many Asians, we both grow up with very strong values around hard work, perseverance, achievement, and continuous striving for excellence. Basically, many Asians would probably qualify for the overthinking and overworking Olympics. Do you agree?
For sure, a podium finish consistently. That's painfully accurate, Alex.
Yes, and during that conversation with Tracy, she shared something very simple but very powerful for me. She said, pursuing excellence should not be limited only to the company you currently work for. If your excellence is not always fully recognized or rewarded in that environment, she said it does not mean you need to stop pursuing excellence altogether. Instead, you can channel that excellence into growth, meaningful impact, helping others, and building something bigger than yourself. That perspective truly shifted something in me. Many professionals unintentionally attach their worth too heavily to one title, one organization, one promotion, or one environment. I can personally attest to that because I've done that myself. But excellence is much bigger than that.
One topic from your posts that generated a lot of reaction was your discussion around executive presence. And I think many people experience that tension, but rarely discuss it openly. I know, I hope you don't mind that I'm sharing this, but how did when how did you feel when you were told that you had the skills and the results? I mean, you're there, you're giving the results, but not necessarily the executive presence needed to be in a top leadership post.
Ouch. I know you for being direct with me, Blanche, but you went very direct this time. But to answer your question, mixed feelings. At first, I will not be a hypocrite. I was hurt and frustrated. Because in my mind, executive presence was never simply about polished communication, accent, or speaking style. For me, it meant something different and something deeper. It meant creating strategy, aligning people, navigating difficult stakeholders, bringing teams together, yet still driving meaningful outcomes. That, to me, is the deeper definition of executive leadership presence.
So tell me, when you received that feedback, did it make you question yourself, doubt yourself, and like invalidate everything you've achieved through the years?
100%. At least it lasted for probably a week. Because I had already spent, yeah, yes, because I have already spent years leading transformations, handling difficult situations, managing multicultural teams, and delivering measurable outcomes. So when I heard you're capable, but naturally I started asking myself, what exactly does that mean? What's missing?
Right. And I think many people will relate to that because the but is a really big word there for people who strive to be in a leadership position.
Yes, exactly. And to be fair, I didn't completely reject the feedback either. English is not my native language. Sometimes I interchange my pronouns and I recognize that 100%. I don't always speak in the most polished or refined way. You know that. You can attest to that. I acknowledge those things openly. I never denied it. But the feedback affected me more deeply because growing up, I already experienced feeling different. As someone from the Philippines with an effeminate voice and mannerisms, there were moments in my younger years where I already felt judged or underestimated. So when feedback around executive presence comes repeatedly over time, part of you or part of me quietly wonders, am I being evaluated only on true leadership capability or also on how closely I match a certain mode of what leadership is supposed to look and sound like?
Right. And in this time of diversity and inclusivity, I think that's a very powerful question, Alex.
Indeed. But as I've said, my hurtfulness and frustration lasted for a week, at least just a week. Instead of becoming bitter, I tried to become reflective. That's the introvert in me, right? How can I improve professionally while still remaining authentic? That's the question I asked myself after a week. I asked myself, how can I strengthen my communication and presentation skills without feeling like I need to erase my identity? And in many ways, identity and impact itself became part of that growth journey. Creating this platform is also my intentional way of putting myself out there more publicly and vulnerably. Recording videos, which I've never done, hosting conversations like we're doing now, expressing my ideas more openly, which I actually love doing, and learning to become more articulate and refined over time. Hopefully, through this journey, I continue to become a stronger communicator, more confident, more refined, and yes, perhaps even stronger in executive presence too. But hopefully without losing the core of who I am in the process.
And it's nice that you're being vulnerable through your videos. And I think one of the purpose here is really engage your audience, engage the people. And having said that, I believe one of your first posts, a comment from Erickson, I think somebody you've known since high school, posted humanity and high performance sound good in theory, but maybe it only works for individual contributors and not really at management level. What did you think of that comment?
Yes. First of all, I appreciated the comment because Erickson, as you've said, is someone I've known for a very long time. We actually met in high school because both of us were leaders of national youth science clubs. It's called the Philippine Society of Youth Science Clubs. We're also from the same province and eventually also ended up studying at the top university in the Philippines, which is UP Diliman. So when someone who has known you for decades raises a challenge like that, you take time to really reflect on it. To be fair, I understood where he was coming from because many leaders today feel trapped between delivering business results, managing cost, driving transformation, handling uncertainty, and still trying to take care for people meaningfully all at the same time.
Right. And true enough, those tensions are very real, you know.
Indeed, like those tensions, as you've said, are very real. There are situations for me where urgency and performance genuinely need to take priority, but I dare say must be temporarily. For example, during a major outage, if you're in an IT firm, right? Or a cybersecurity issue, a customer escalation, a critical transformation deadline that I'm used to. And in those moments, I believe leaders sometimes need teams to move fast and prioritize execution intensely. And I think that's okay.
Right. And just to clarify, your is not that performance becomes less important. Is that
Not at
correct?
all. Not at all. Organizations still need accountability, operational excellence, speed, innovation, and superb results. The danger for me is when that intense mode becomes the permanent culture instead of the exception. That's why a while ago I emphasized temporarily. Because if it's not, if that's the permanent behavior and culture, I believe the organization will pay for it in the long term. They will pay for it through burnout, disengagement, attrition, low trust, and exhausted teams, even exhausted top performers.
Right. And so my takeaway from this is that you're advocating for balance. Ultimately, that's where companies should be.
Absolutely. I believe in a Jungian principle of psychology. It's always balance. It's the balance of your yin and your yang. But exactly, it's all about balance. Human centered leadership is not about removing standards. Let's be clear about that. It's about creating the balance intentionally, recognizing there will be moments where performance and results temporarily dominates. But hopefully, over the long term, organizations still create environments where people can grow, perform, innovate, contribute meaningfully, and still remain human in the process.
Right. And let me bring you, I believe your acquaintances, you know each other, but another thought provoking comment came from Shelly Majors. She's a strategic HR advisor and executive coach from the US. She said most organizations say humanity and performance can coexist, but when push comes to shove, they still reward output more than people centered leadership.
Yes, and first let me acknowledge Shelly. It's actually been a while since we last connected, but we met years ago when we were both tapped as subject matter expert supporting HR certification related work in the US. So hearing her perspective again brought back very thoughtful reflections. And I think Shelly is right. Many organizations genuinely want healthy cultures. I have not seen an organization who does not want that. But what organizations reward, promote, recognize, and even tolerate shapes behavior much more powerfully than values posters or leadership slogans. So if organizations constantly and consistently reward overwork, constant availability, individual heroics, or unsustainable output, then people, the employees quickly understand what the real culture actually is.
Right. And I think it's very difficult because this is a standard way of running an organization. So having realized this, giving face to this, what can organizations do differently?
One concrete thing I can offer is that organizations can do better in becoming much clearer about the human values they truly want their leaders to embody. Not just defining them, but embedding them in the system. Embed them in performance evaluations, in their promotion criteria, in their leadership expectations, in their succession planning, and even in their reward systems. Because if leaders are evaluated only on numbers and output, then naturally that becomes the dominant behavior. However, if organizations intentionally also measure trust, collaboration, mentorship, sustainability, and people development, then culture starts aligning more closely to what organizations claim they value. So it's bringing
Yeah,
their core values to life.
that's very interesting. And I believe you're launching this philosophy that you have. It's called the Alex Principles. Okay, tell me about it. This is an acronym of your name, but what is the philosophy of the Alex Principle?
Yeah, so when I crafted that, it sounded to me as narcissistic. So if you think the same, you're not the only one. I actually thought the same thing initially. But over time, I realized it wasn't really about me. So the Alex principle, it's using my name as the acronym, was not really about me. The Alex principles became my way of summarizing the most important lessons I've learned throughout my journey from mentors, from leaders, from my own experiences and failures of growth and reflection. So it became a philosophy for what I want to approach leadership and life moving forward. So aspire, lead, empower, and excel. Underneath those words are years of lessons from great leaders and mentors who challenged me, believed in me, stretched my thinking, and helped shape who I became. So the principles are less about self branding and more about trying to pass forward the lessons, the values, the leadership philosophies that profoundly impacted my own life.
Well, being a part of your team at some point, it actually makes sense because this is who you are and these are the principles that you've led by, and leading by example. I think, yeah, it makes sense because it is not so much very narcissistic as it is like really for people to remember the lessons they've learned when they were your mentees and when they had you when they were encountering you in their professional life.
That was really the intention behind it, Blanche. So I hope that people like you and the other people who work with me that I help grow and mentor would attest to that. But my hope is that other people who I can coach and mentor later on will also realize the same. And over time, I also realized the principles actually became my simple way of thinking about growth, leadership, and transformation, almost like a methodology or a continuous cycle. And you know me for being process driven, and I have a bias against a process mindset, right? So to me, the methodology speaks something like this. First, you teach people or organizations to aspire, to think bigger, to define their goals, purpose, vision, and the kind of future they want to create, either for themselves, for their teams, or for their organizations. Because if people do not know where they want to go, leadership becomes directionless. That's the first one. Then it comes leading. Once the vision becomes clearer, the next question becomes who will lead the work? How do we lead it in a way that aligns people, builds trust, drives execution, and moves the vision forward? Then comes the third one, empower, because no vision succeeds through one person alone. You need to empower yourself and the people around you through capability, trust, giving opportunity, providing coaching, collaborating, and really shared ownership. And fourth and finally, excel. Not simply achieving success once, but becoming comfortable and not becoming comfortable with it, but continuously learning, improving, evolving, and striving for better. And then the cycle repeats again. So you aspire to something even greater. You lead again. You empower others again. So you continue excelling and evolving again. So, in summary, in many ways, the Alex Principles became both a personal philosophy and a simple framework for sustainable growth and leadership.
Right. And hearing you break it down like that, is like more like a playbook for leadership. And that gives it so much more meaning and so much more adaptable for the people who could really use this philosophy.
Yes, so it's a playbook that I believed and I've seen would contribute to growth of others because it contributed to my growth, but I will also continuously test it and validate it with other people too. So that was the intention behind it.
Right. So for people listening today, what do you ultimately hope identity and impact becomes or means for them?
I hope that it becomes a space that I provide so we can have thoughtful conversations around meaningful topics, including leadership, operational excellence, AI and the future of work, identity, humanity, transformation, innovation, growth, and more importantly, meaningful impact in a rapidly changing world. I hope, though, that it's not a conversation that lowers standards, but a conversation that help refine sustainable excellence. And hopefully, Blanche, along the way, I also finally stop interchanging pronouns incorrectly.
Okay, well, that's not a major issue anyway, as long as you're understood. But I'd like to thank you. I want to wrap this up, and I've learned so much from this discussion. The deep dive, the intent, I get it now. And congratulations to you. Happy birthday. And I hope to see everyone in your circle of identity and impact. Thank you for having me, Alex.
Thank you again, Blanche, and thank you to everyone who have listened or will listen. So again, if today's conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll join the circle. Goodbye, everyone.